and welcome in. Thank you for joining me. So I just finished the Yeshua channelings. The last episode was last week's, and I'm really excited about the potential of an upcoming interview with Yeshua himself through Pamela. That's still not 100%, but it seems like a probability, so I'm trying to put my positive energy towards that happening. But in the meantime, I'm trying to come up with really good questions, which it's kind of wild to me to think about that this is happening, given how as a child I really wanted to connect so strongly to the real Yeshua that I felt existed in my heart. And that's what this feels like to me, you know. And I've had to let go of the knowledge, the I guess more the intuition that there's people in my orbit that would see this as, you know, maybe some sort of sorcery or witchcraft or Satan. And I'm just not basing my beliefs on fear anymore. I'm basing them on what do I resonate with, what makes sense to me, what pushes me forward in a positive way. Like to me that's the proof of what you're doing is working. If it's moving you forward and you're not directly harming other people, then you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And we're very discouraged in our society from pursuing what makes us tick, because that isn't really congruent with the systems at work. You know, capitalism doesn't really have room for people to truly expand themselves and to become more educated and autonomous, because that equals more self-awareness at how they're being screwed over. And that's why you're seeing a huge explosion of unions forming everywhere and a lot of worker class solidarity. And this has happened before, obviously, in history. You know, it kind of repeats itself in cycles. But I think we're coming to a point where, you know, with the internet and social media and everything being kind of available to witness in some way, shape, or form, whether it's distorted news media or, you know, TikToks and Instagram posts and whatever else, we're able to take on so much more information about what's happening in the world, and we're all feeling so overwhelmed by it because there's so much bad news that gets all the clicks and all the attention. And, you know, I think we're coming to a point where something is going to happen that will maybe more forcibly make us unplug from that and to actually go inward. And that sounds terrifying to a lot of people, right? I know there's a lot of people that I come into contact with who hate something like that. They just want to return to normalcy. They want to go back to the way things were, but we can never do that. We can never really go back in time and recreate something in the past. We just need to leave it there and be inspired that the future is ours to create. It's not going to happen to us. It is literally going to happen from us. So take all of this fear energy and anxious energy and try and ask yourself, can I turn this into something positive? Can I use this as fuel? You know, if you see it as a negative thing, then burn it. Again, turn it into fuel. Make it something that motivates you to do the things that excite you. So that's something that I've been really interested in with the Bashar channelings that Daryl Anka does, is that he has this whole formula. And the formula is about pursuing what gives you the highest excitement in any given moment, that you have an actionable lane towards. That's not something like, I want to be in space right now and orbit the moon, like something you can actually do, and then follow that to its logical conclusion all the way until you're no longer excited by it, and then find the next thing that gives you the highest excitement. And basically by doing this, you're communicating directly with your higher mind and creating the reality you want to create, because he's saying that's the mechanics of what really makes us tick and synchronous with our higher mind, is to do things that are exciting to us. And also to, when you have a goal in mind about where you want to be, you have to let go of any kind of preconceived idea about what it's going to look like to get there. Like all of your expectations have to kind of go away when you have a dream in your mind about what you want to be and what you want to do. You just kind of, you put that dream out there, you put love into it, and then you kind of let it go. And trust that when you act on your highest excitement, you will be led to that automatically. You don't have to know the path. The thinking mind, the left brain, the ego mind, the logical human side of us wants to map out every single step and to have everything, in probabilities. That's, at least for me, I want percentages on what's going to happen and what's the chance. And it's not like that, I don't think. Bashar's formula to me sounds like a really great experiment to try. And most of the people who come to his conferences where Daryl Inca channels him, most of their problems come back to the formula not being followed, and the people recognizing, I'm not following it, because it is so contrary to current societal norms that you will lose friends and respect from people who need to see you in a certain way, who need to have you kept in a little box of this is who you are, and I can easily control and understand that person. But when you start to expand and explore, people are kind of threatened by it because they're like, who are you to do this? What made you so special that you get to go off and bloom your beautiful flower essence, or what, I don't know. But that's what I think the new era is going to look like. It's just a bunch of flowers that have been holding back from blooming, finally just letting themselves be free and feel the knowledge of the rays of understanding flood over their most delicate, intricate, and expressive parts. When that flower is completely open and receptive. That's what I think we're going to be as we move into this new era. But we have to invite that in. We can't just automatically expect that to happen for us. So that's why I think we have so many dark realities happening right now on the world stage, on the political and I don't know how to say it the right term for, all the conflicts happening everywhere and the escalation of that, all these nuclear armed countries. And obviously for me as an American, I feel like this would be something that 5-6 years ago would have plunged me into a deep despair, and that I would feel pretty damn hopeless about what's going to happen, in this country and the world as a result. And now I'm just kind of seeing it as this is another opportunity to choose, to make a choice between what I prefer and what I don't prefer. And so when I see examples of things that are more and more just blatantly wrong to me, or not, I guess wrong is kind of getting into too much of a judgmental frame, but choices that I would not want to make anymore, that I probably have made in the past, I see them more clearly now for what they are, and they make me more organically want to turn towards what I do want, which is a future of unity and connection. That was something Yeshua told me when I asked a few questions a couple weekends ago, was that I really, really want to connect with everyone, he said. And that like rang so true, because all throughout my life, that's been a big kind of problem for me, is trying so hard to fit in with the right group and to be seen and understood and validated. And I realize now why I always felt empty with each group I tried out and each, table I sat at lunch. Like in my high school that I went to for 2 years, I finished high school. I just went to a different, I went to a trade school actually and did radio broadcasting. But my first 2 years of high school were just at a really big local public high school, and it was very cliquey, like most high schools, like most high school experiences with 1,500 plus students. And so I would literally sit with different groups each lunch. One lunch it would be with the goths, next lunch the stoners, next lunch the jocks, next lunch the youth group kids. I was bouncing around because I didn't really want to pick a side. I wanted to connect with everyone. That felt very, very strong in my feeling part of me. And so it was so like moving to have that validated by friggin' Yeshua, like that wasn't something Pamela could know, because we haven't really talked that much. So there was several other things like that he told me about myself that felt very, very congruent. It never felt like that doesn't really match my like understanding of myself. It was like, oh my God, that's definitely me. Down to me leaving my military unit and following going to find him speak when I was incarnate in that life, you know, and I asked if I knew him. He told me, yeah, you actually came to hear me speak one time and had to travel across the Middle East and leave your military unit, and they were pretty pissed off, and, you know, I got punished and humiliated for it, and that kind of continued for me, that pursuit of truth, and then the constant humiliation and punishment from the world saying, nah, buddy, no, fall in line, do as you're told, do your tasks and shut up and be like everyone else. And that's torn me up for, I think, lifetime after lifetime. And now I'm finally coming to this place where I can stop letting the outside destroy me. I can stop letting another person's version of me that exists in their head affect who I am. So this is also something that really happens in relationships, right? I've been in a marriage now for almost 20 years, and we have had some really big up and downs because we came from such a fundamentalist background, fundamentalist Christianity, and we got married for all the wrong reasons, just a lot of codependency. And, you know, I won't get into all the details for the sake of compromising my wife's integrity, but it was really rough for quite a while, and I left the house a few different times with a pretty strong vibe that divorce was what needed to happen. And one of those times was right before COVID, and I had moved into an apartment, and I was really serious about it, but I was kind of more serious about killing myself. I was just bottomed out in every way, shape, and form, completely depressed. My faith had just finally imploded. I no longer believed or cared about Christianity or, you know, the Bible. I hadn't really for quite a while. I think I always believed in like the Jesus that existed in my heart, which was the one that didn't send people to hell and there was no hell. And again, this feels like such validation now to be communicating with this Yeshua who confirms that person that I felt even then. But yeah, our relationship bottomed out, and we're at this place now where we can have, I won't get into all the details of how we got reconciled, and, you know, things almost kind of broke apart again because I was getting into the Yeshua channelings and reading about karmic relationships versus healing relationships, and that really kind of spun me out because I realized our relationship has been highly karmic, which is just, you can listen to that chapter again on the podcast, relationships in the new era. But yeah, it was rough. There was a lot of, you know, swapping roles of victim and offender, and a lot of keeping score, and a lot of just not allowing each other to be who we really were, but trying to cram the other into some manufactured version of, you know, what we were told growing up is how your spouse should be. That was kind of what we were trying to cram each other into, and it was killing us. And we've gotten to this really open and expansive place of being able to have those moments where we kind of slide back to the old way and quickly catch it and let it go and just move on. And like, we found so many new layers of just love, respect, and communication, and I couldn't be more grateful for, you know, having been able to stick it out and make this work. I really didn't think it was going to happen, and I wouldn't tell other people in a really difficult relationship that everyone's the same and that, you know, sticking it out is the only way, because it's certainly not. Some people really do need to get separated. I mean, even Yeshua was pretty clear about, also in The Forbidden Male Speaks, which is a really good book outlining more about relationship dynamics, especially pertaining to, you know, kind of unbalanced masculine energy. But essentially, Yeshua was talking about how true love is super rare, because most relationships are about, I need you to complete the missing pieces of me. You know, I need you to fill in the gaps where I don't feel like a whole human being. And so, yes, that can be a beautiful give and take where you're learning from another person things that you don't really know about or that you're not intuitive about. But if you're expecting them to fulfill you in a way that makes you complete, you run the huge risk of, once you've given that energy to them and they, you know, become like anyone else, a human being, and do human things and maybe betray that trust you gave them, then you lose a big piece of yourself that takes a long time to heal and regather. And so really what he's saying is you're not meant to give away that energy. You are meant to keep yourself whole and intact by yourself. And then when you're in a relationship, it's two people who have basically reached that understanding of themselves as, I don't need the other person to make me whole, but I would like a partner, to enjoy this life with. And so there's nothing wrong with marriage and long-term relationships or anything like that. It's just really about, what is your motivation? Like, what is driving the need to be with that person? And that can be a scary thing to face, but it's been for us really healing to be honest and open and to face the past of, all the ways we were kind of told wrong. And I kind of feel like that whole experience has been the part where it's really tough for our parents to poke a hole in where we're at, based on, we were told when we left the faith, our marriage would crumble, we would give in to all of the evils of our, lustful minds or whatever. And really the opposite was true. I found myself becoming a more moral person after leaving Christianity, and just because there wasn't all this weird exterior pressure, it was self-motivated now. I had to be a good person because I wanted to be, and I didn't need to do it by these specific, rigorous, weird, misunderstood, mistranslated reasonings. So it was all about reframing what makes me feel like a good human being. And I found that a lot of the things that make me feel good are what, Jesus was talking about, but got all flipped upside down. So that's a big question I have for Yeshua is, what happened with the Bible? Who actually wrote the books? Where did things go off the rails with your message being about worship and, capitulating power and the need for salvation from sins? All these ideas. I mean, I think I know it, like, intuitively where that comes from, because that was the era that he came to, where people thought in such a stark black and white way, and good or evil and binary. And so trying to give them this super nuanced, expansive message was really, really difficult. Like, it was mistranslated just by default, because of the understandings available at that time energetically on the earth, and the current status of human beings, the kind of stasis they were in. So it makes sense that things wouldn't get copied downright, especially in a culture where oral tradition was way more important than any kind of like journalistic integrity, which is obviously now a oxymoron. But they didn't care about keeping tight, detailed records of events back then. It was very much legend and word of mouth. And so anyway, I have a lot of questions about kind of what happened there, and how can we release our attachment to the Jesus of the Bible without, burning all the bridges with the Christians in our life and stuff. Because I still have many Christians in my life that I love and respect. I just obviously very much disagree with kind of the basic interpretation of reality and who Jesus or Yeshua is and was. But I've let go of the need to let that be a problem, It's just what it is, and I don't really see it as something inescapable that people are going to be trapped by with, oh no, I misunderstood something, now I'm going to the hot place. That just doesn't happen. The infinite creator of all things can't actually, I don't think it's even capable of creating a part of itself that can be destroyed or lost, because it's too friggin' smart and all-knowing to know what would create that condition. That it would have all of the information it needed to make a choice to avoid that, and it does. It keeps us on a certain guardrail. We can choose a lot of darkness. We can choose a lot of lives where we pursue, what I guess Ra would have called in the Law of One channeling, service to self, and be polarized that direction. But even that is a viable expression of source, because it's all created for us to explore. It's not binding. There's no contract that keeps us locked somewhere we don't want to be. We're doing it to create dynamics and experiences that we can't have when we're back home with source. That's the bottom line. We did this because we could, because why not? And obviously that seems cruel and stupid sometimes when you look at the state of the world, but again, I believe that everyone who dies in war or of disease or whatever horrible, tragic way, that was known beforehand that that was probably going to be the way they went out. And so there's no victim there. There was a choice to experience that. So even the child who is, tragically killed in war after war, these innocent victims, rightfully think as human beings they're victims, because in a very obvious literal sense they are, but they're not victims as souls because they chose to have this dynamic experience of what would it be like to feel so separated from my source that I was in this state of just terror and fear. And I mean, it sounds objectively kind of just evil to us to like think about wanting to experience that kind of stuff. But we only have such a limited perspective on the bigger importance of having these experiences. And I get that that's a tough sell for a lot of people. Like, oh, okay, so I'm just supposed to trust that all of the horrors of the world are sort of pre-orchestrated, and we do this because we're good moral spirit, right? What moral spirit wants to experience all of this darkness? I get it. Totally get that argument. I can't really refute it. That's something you have to have your own understanding on. Like, someone can't preach at you and have your mind just be able to filter and translate and understand like what that really means. So if what I'm saying again is like really out of line to you or off base, then let it just propel you towards more questions rather than definitive judgments or statements. Like, maybe just let it open another door for you to ask a few more questions, even if you're just like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think this guy's on point here or whatever. And now I'm just, again, I do this sometimes, projecting my own insecurities, because I do still feel like a rookie at all this. I was a very homered in Christian for 37 years, and I really, really allowed myself to have a barrier with my curiosity for most of that time. I got to a certain point where I was terrified of taking in outside information that could sway me towards Satan. So I didn't even ever give the time of day to like philosophers and creative, amazing minds if they weren't Christians. I had a huge capacity though for like secular music and Saturday Night Live and TV and all good things 90s, but I still had this huge barrier intellectually where I couldn't allow myself to even entertain some of these ideas. And that really stunted my growth in a lot of ways. And so I'm just now catching up in the last couple years, going from being an atheist just a few years ago. I was also in that place, like, I don't really need to question too much. Like, it's pretty clear there's only chaos in the world. And I was okay living there for a while, but then something kept stirring in me. And, now I am here a couple years later, having gone down the rabbit hole, but I'm very new in my understanding and exploration. So I'm just kind of like drinking from the fire hose right now of different channelers, different esoteric wisdom and information. And it's kind of a lot. And I think it gets a little bit confused in my mind. So the biggest thing is just to allow myself to trust that if I'm following my highest excitement and what is giving me the biggest rush of feeling like this is what I came here to do, then that's what I'm meant to do. And I'll be honest with you, I don't do that all the time. I have, 2 teenage kids, and I live in a very, very, very highly trafficked area of, that didn't sound right, an area with a lot of traffic near a very busy port, and it's really kind of hectic and loud and polluted out here. So there's a big part of me that does not feel settled, that doesn't feel like I'm integrating all of this fully. But I think I'm having this experience and this surrounding to help me find peace within that. Like, that's the goal, for me, is to get to a center point, a balance point where the chaos can be happening around me, but I'm not allowing it to influence my energy field. That I'm creating a barrier for myself, basically a wall of love, or a sphere of love, a bubble around myself that keeps me from being completely, infiltrated by negative outside energy, but still allows me to interact with that world and be in it. It's the whole idea of being in the world and not of the world. It's a Bible quote that I think can be translated and understood in many different ways. But to me, it's like, yeah, we can ground ourselves here. It's important that we feel like we're, connecting to human life on some level, but we're not of this plane. We didn't come from Earth. We came from spirit, which is not a destination or a location. It's a all pervasive awareness, which, yeah, tough to grab onto that one. But I think one of the things that really stuck with me in some of the NDEs that I was taking in early on in my kind of journey to where I'm at, or where I'm going, I should say, was that people who kind of went really deep into their NDE, some of them felt this experience of creating the universe, of being all of it and also none of it, because, which of course on its face is like, that doesn't make sense. But that's sort of the idea that we're projecting out this universe anyway from our dreams, from our creative mind. And so it's not real in one sense, but because we're inhabiting it and participating in it, it makes it real. But also we're not attached to it in the way that we kind of want to think as human beings. But I thought it was really fascinating how some people had this understanding in these NDEs that they were both everything and nothing. And when you first hear it, you're just like, that doesn't make any sense. Stop. But the more I've had time to chew on that, it really does start to make sense how everything we see, touch, and feel is a part of the infinite whole, because nothing can exist outside of that. There is no outside. There is no other. It is all truly connected, but we're given this filter to make it feel like it's not, because that makes the experience dynamic, different, other than what we have experienced before. So this is just this is like a pen stroke, a paintbrush swipe on a canvas of infinite possibilities. So whatever you feel like right now that you're weighed down by or attached to, it is not the case. You are infinite, expansive, free, not only loving, but you are love incarnate. Just try and tell yourself that, think that, believe that. Even if it's wrong, even if it's not the truth, what's the loss there? You're not joining a cult. You're not signing up for a program. You're just embracing this idea that you are capable more than you think of making choices, and making choices for love, and especially making choices to let go of your own torment, regrets, trauma, to seek healing for that, and to believe that you're worth that you're not the sum of your actions in this body. That this is just one of many experiences you've had, and you can make all the mistakes in the world and still never truly disappoint or lose your place with the Creator, with your spirit self. That never fades or is compromised or is capable of being compromised. And I can't prove that, but I believe that with every fiber of who I am. That's the part of me that still feels evangelical, because this is the part of me that was always clawing to come out. Maybe not clawing, that's a little aggressive, but there was a part of me that was dying inside because I was repressing it, and it was the side of me that knew that we are not bound to these fearful constructions of the human mind. That hell and torture and being lost in darkness, those are just things that we come up with because we are acting out of the misinformation that we are separate from ourselves, from our divine nature, from source. So yeah, we're acting accordingly. It makes sense, right? There's an action and reaction for everything. And we took the action of having the dream of what would it be like to be separate, and now we're experiencing all the ramifications of what that would be like. But we're moving up. There's an order of progression that is happening. We're not just getting stuck in some weird up and down cycle all the time. We are moving towards understanding again, but an understanding that allows us to create our own new and beautiful universes, realities, whatever we want. We still can't really grab onto that as humans because we don't feel like we're allowed to say that we have the powers of God. Then you're a blasphemous psychotic that belongs in a mental institution. And, there's all these stigmas, of course, that, once you start thinking you're God, then you have a complex and you're insane. And so I think it's one of those things we have to let go of is why can't we? Why can't we see ourselves that way? You know, your discernment, if you're following the true path of your soul, will not be towards megalomania or deifying yourself or glorifying yourself above other people. You will recognize the inherent unity, and so you will be empowered both as a self, but also empowered because of your knowledge of our unified spirit. And then from there, we just create and do what we want, and we'll be naturally acting out of a place of love and understanding because we experienced all of the lack, all of the misunderstanding, and that just gave us the ability to more discerningly choose what we prefer and choose the realities we want to create that are free from those trappings. So know that every pain and disappointment and judgment has a purpose to train you to say, fuck that. That's not who I am. I am more than this. I am beyond the struggles of human life, but also I'm the architect of this experience. Nothing is happening to me. I have agreed to experience these issues so that I can transcend them and alchemize them into a new understanding, so that I can create realities that far exceed anything that I currently think is beautiful and transcendent. That's, I believe, where we're heading, but that's what like I said, my belief. Your belief is your belief, and my belief is my belief. Duh. Sorry, I just wanted to make it, clear. But truly, we all are on our own path, and it's as long as we are connecting with ourselves, we don't have to worry about anything else because we're going to operate in love and with a unity mindset. Yes, apparently we will still have disagreements and disputes in the new era, but they will never be solved again by violence and war and horror and death. Those are the old ways that we are letting go of right now. They are still peaking. There's still going to be a period of what looks a little bit like an apocalypse, the end, but it's really the end of the old way. It's the end of the old world. It's like I said in the very first episode of this podcast, that Gramsci quote, that the old world is dying and the new world struggles to be born. Now is the time of monsters. And I think I probably misquoted it slightly, but that's the gist of it. So yeah, we're still in the monsters stage, but I really think that's going to be a short period. It's not going to be like years of just plagues and torment and horror, like biblical revelation type shit. It feels like that could very well happen, but I truly believe that was a product of human misunderstandings about who we are in relation to all that is. And so there is a lot of people who are expecting this and sort of creating that reality for themselves in their mind, and they may experience it. Like we're all multidimensional beings, and we can experience many different parallel realities while we're existing in the same kind of physical space, which I don't quite understand that yet, but that's something Bashar gets into a lot and has kind of helped give me clarification. He claims we're shifting realities billions of times a second, and that each reality is like a still frame, like a single frame from a film, like old school alert, but they used to have in movie theaters where a projector would play film where each still image would be moved at a speed that would create the illusion of motion. And that's basically what we're doing as we move through these parallel universes. We're selecting from all of these still frames of experience that are available out there as infinite possibilities, and we're shifting to those based on our vibration, our, I guess, trajectory, mindset, soul path, whatever. Again, I don't understand how that works, how we can square, multiple people having their own parallel universe experiences, but my theory is that you kind of are usually on a pretty tight track that to make big variations on requires a pretty giant upheaval of, and a big push against your natural inclinations. So like it can happen where you veer off on some very different timeline. But the point I'm trying to make is that I think that there's going to be more of a split with people who are not willing to move on to a higher form of consciousness. They want to stay on Earth in the old way. And there's talk about how eventually those souls, when they move on from their bodies, will incarnate somewhere else because they're not quite ready yet to embrace this idea that they are expansive creator source just being manifested in a refraction through a dream. And there's no judgment there. There's no one who gets lost, no one who gets cast out into darkness. Like we've done the same thing to get to where we're at. Everyone who is ready to ascend now has had to go through their own ascension missing events where they were not prepared yet to embrace who they were. So there's no loss there. There's no shame to it. It's part of the natural course of experiences, so that, again, the contrast makes the rest of the ride just so much more beautiful. It's like we start in like tar, molasses, glue, honey, and it's almost like being on a ride that it goes through this deep layer of just sludge, and it takes forever to get through the sludge. But then when you get out of the sludge, the ride goes up, up, up into the clouds, and it's this beautiful ascent, and it's peaceful, and it's not scary. That's a bad metaphor, but really I think where we're heading is going to make the rest of this almost seem trivial. Right now it feels all-consuming and just dark and heavy and terrible in a lot of ways. Not obviously everything, but just the injustices that are occurring in the world feel very heavy and difficult to avoid. But once we get past these misunderstandings and errors in judgment, we will move towards a place that, again, is just it's gonna make the rest of this look like almost a joke. Not in a dismissive, like it wasn't worth it way, but just like that was so small compared to how expansive this is, to how incredible it is to experience higher and higher forms of understanding until you eventually remerge entirely with source, but with all these different realities available and experiences that you've had. Anyway, I know this has been just like a prolonged sermon, but this is really what is pressing on me right now as we're moving towards a very dark, difficult time in a lot of ways in a lot of people's lives. There are a lot of, again, wars happening and children being killed and mothers and just, elderly people and starvation and just so many horrors that can easily pull us off of our center and make us feel so subject to the darkness. But we always have a choice how to respond. We can respond to these situations in love and understanding, and to find ways to bridge gaps with communities that are disputing with each other over these things, and to not have to pick a side, but pick the middle, pick love, pick neutrality and understanding. I don't have all the tools for how to get there. You have them within you for yourself. You don't need me to spell it out for you. You just need to keep asking yourself, keep giving yourself slack and love and grace and the ability to make mistakes, or not make mistakes, but do things that you end up not preferring, so that you can choose more clearly what you do prefer. That's the point of all these negative experiences, to just give us contrast. And I've said this, I know, like 100 different times in 100 different ways this podcast, but again, it's really just about having all of that negative experience to be able to organically choose love and connectedness again, and to experience it in a whole new way that you couldn't have without that feeling of lack and that feeling of abandonment and all the dark, heavy feelings that we felt in past lives and in this life. It all gets filtered out eventually when we move towards understanding. And we're all doing that. Even these people who might not make the transition here, they're going to head there at their own timing, on their own pace. Again, no one's lost. I am repeating myself. I am very aware. I just want to drive it home. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. I hope this was encouraging. I really just want to give people more of a lane to give themselves a chance to really work this stuff out with love, and not be so prone to making judgments and picking sides and losing their peace of mind. Try to lean into who you are and to love that person, and to let go of the misunderstandings. Even if you continue to make repeated mistakes or repeated, there's habitual problems in your life that just aren't easy to get rid of, it doesn't make you any less. That doesn't reduce your divinity or your worthiness. It doesn't mean you need forgiveness. Only for yourself. You are the only one who ever thought you needed forgiveness. All right, well, thank you again for listening. I'm going to go ahead and cut myself off there. I appreciate it if you made it this far. If you are feeling what I'm saying, then that's awesome. If you're not, totally understandable. Again, we're all on different paths, but if you think I'm just getting something dead wrong, or you have positive or negative feedback, you can always email me. You have the keys, 639@gmail.com. I'm an open book. I'm not opening myself up to like hatred and like really harsh criticism, but like if you have constructive criticism or something positive or whatever, really it's okay. Even if you send me something hateful, I can handle it. I worked in customer service most of my life. I'm used to getting just sort of like undeserved hate and vengeance and frothing anger from people. It's what I've done, and it's all led me to be able to get to this place where I can let all that go and say, those people are just as divine as I am. They're on their path. They're doing their own thing. I don't understand maybe currently what path they're on or why it's like that, but that's not for me to understand. That's their reality to create and manifest and understand from. And when I trust we're all moving towards love, it all gets sorted out. So anyway, if you have a question for me or you want to ask Yeshua a question, I'm going to work on a list, and it may go off the list when we actually talk, but I just wanted to have some questions lined up that were kind of pressing. And beyond that, I'm going to have a really exciting video chat with Pauline Edward that will be coming up next week, as long as editing goes smoothly. But had a really good conversation with her talking about her new book and just a lot of other concepts. And she's just a really incredible human being who's been through a lot of, pain in her lifetime and her own really dark, deep contrasts to get her to where she's at with her understanding. And she just has such a spirit of love and openness for the people around her and for the world that it's really inspiring and hard not to feel motivated and inspired by it. Can I say inspired again? But so Pauline, thank you again for coming on. And I'm excited to have that episode put out again, hopefully by next week, barring disasters or family emergencies. I do have teenage children. And then I'm going to also read a chapter from her book, probably the following week. And I need to line up some more interviews. I've been pretty slack on that. I get going on YouTube and I see all the different NDE channels having like everyone and their mom on there. And I think, well, maybe this has already been covered. Maybe I need to do something differently. I don't know. I want to interview and talk to people. I want to get perspectives and insights from those who see the world differently than me. That's how I grow and learn and, become the person I want to become. So anyway, if you know anybody like that, or you're one of those people, let's talk. It's been a little bit hard for me to, again, get the framework laid out for myself to line these things up or to pursue them very well. So if you're someone I've talked to in the past about coming on the show and I flaked out, I promise it's not you, it's me. Classic line, right? But truly, I'm really new at this and I don't really know what I want to do. Just in life in general, I don't usually commit to like one rigid thing just dogmatically. It's like I kind of go with the flow, and if it feels right, I'll do it. If not, I back away. Sometimes I'm too prone to back away, but it's just me. So anyway, but yes, thank you again for listening. I really appreciate who you are on this earth right now and what you're doing, even if you don't recognize what you're doing. You came in an incredible time to experience incredible things, and just try and take some comfort in, and no matter what happens to your circumstances around you, even your body, your finances, that you are so far beyond this temporary manifestation. And you are held, you are loved, you are love incarnate. And hold on to that, give yourself the forgiveness and trust you need. And I hope that you will go in love and light. Be well, and namaste.